Chiefs Kingdom, welcome back to All Chiefed Up. We're back with another podcast for that ass. And today, we're talking big updates for Chris Jones and L'Jarius Sneed. Let's talk about it.
Before we get the show started, do us a huge favor. Hit the like button, hit the sub button if you haven't subscribed already, and help the channel grow. Mike, let's talk about these updates on Chris Jones and L'Jarius Sneed.
Let's do it. Let's start with our boy L'Jarius. Dov Kleiman's come out with an update and said the Lions and Dolphins are two teams to keep an eye on if the Chiefs decide to trade L'Jarius Sneed, per Jeremy Fowler of ESPN. Steve, the Dolphins do not have a lot of draft capital. The Lions, on the other hand, have the number 29 pick in the first round, the number 61 pick in the second round, and 2 third-round picks. They got a number 92, but they also got a number 73 from the Minnesota Vikings. Do you think that with more draft capital, the Lions are the team that they would probably play ball with over the Dolphins? Because the Dolphins don't have a lot.
It just depends on what the Dolphins want to do, right? I mean, if the Dolphins will give more, then maybe they deal with the Dolphins, but it looks like that the Lions are in better position to do so.
Right.
I think that either team would love to have L'Jarius Sneed. I've heard rumors saying the Dolphins are like all horned up about Xavier Worthy now that he ran a 4.2 40 because they want every fast person in the NFL on their offense. So I don't know. It really depends, but I think a Lions trade, I highly doubt you're going to get a first-round pick out of Sneed. I've said that a few times, but if you could, jump all over it by all means.
Right. That was going to be my question for you. Do you think he's worth a first-round pick? I'm hearing that the Chiefs are thinking second rounds, multiple day 2 picks, and maybe multiple day 2 picks with swapping of picks in future years, like 2025, swapping 5th-round picks or something like that. That's a little arrogant in a way because they're saying, hey, we know we're going to pick later than you. We'll just swap our 5th-round picks next year. Like, that's hilarious. But Sneed, 2 second-round picks. Does that sound reasonable, or do you say first-round pick or nothing?
2 second-round picks is more than I figured you could get for Sneed.
What about a second and a third? Are you fine with that?
I was saying a second and a fifth, something like that. I just know that people really value those first-round draft picks. And, here's the thing, though. If the Lions were planning on taking a cornerback at the end of the first round, maybe they trade it for Sneed. Maybe they go ahead and they're like, hey, let's take this proven guy. But you have to think, if they can get a top corner on a rookie contract, that's a much better ideal situation for them as opposed to paying Sneed the bag. But yeah, I don't know. It just really depends. But I think if you could get a second and say a 4th rounder or a 5th rounder along with it for L'Jarius Sneed, I think you're doing good there. I think that's what the Chiefs are going to have to do because I highly doubt they're going to be able to pay L'Jarius Sneed the money he wants. So you might as well go ahead and get some draft capital.
Right. Remember, they drafted Jeff Okudah in the first round out of, I think it was Ohio State a few years ago. Yeah. He never panned out.
I like that guy, too.
Right. He never panned out. He ended up in Atlanta. I think he's actually a free agent this year. That would have been funny for Veach to take a stab at somebody like that. That was one of those top picks. But, yeah, they don't have a good track record of drafting corners, to be honest. Maybe you do go this route. A few other teams that could be interested. I've heard that Green Bay's in the market for a corner. I've heard that Arizona could possibly be looking for a corner. Do any of those teams intrigue you? I think Arizona may have 2 first-round picks this year.
Right. Well, anyone with a lot of draft capital and has a need at cornerback, I think that's intriguing. It doesn't matter what team it is. I think we should just tell the Detroit Lions, you know what? You can keep your first-round pick. We'll go ahead and give you Sneed, but can you give us Sam Laporta, please?
Oh, you're just going to hear a lot of people's throwing out they want Jameson Williams. Like they're just going to trade Jameson Williams after a year.
They're not going to trade either of those guys
to go get him. That's crazy talk. Let's get to the Chris Jones thing, shall we? Chris Jones. Dov also says update: league sources now believe the Chiefs will need to offer Chris Jones $27 to $28 million per year if they want to close a deal with him, per Jeremy Fowler. Again, Steve, we know that this has been the big thing, that we thought 30. He's come off of it. We said it's going to be 27 to 28. Well, they actually asked a few things. Diana Rossini at The Athletic with Nate Taylor, it says Kansas City has growing optimism that it will re-sign Jones in free agency. He deserves to get paid, one league source told The Athletic. Another source said he should get a massive deal. Brett Veach speaking at the Combine. Steve said, I love Chris. Tried really hard to get something done, and we didn't. But when we get together right after that Detroit game, we had a great talk. Both parties, I think, want to be here, so we'll get to work. That's certainly a guy we want back and love and want to see him finish his career in KC. So then Per Jordan Foote, Chris Jones says, I told Chairman and CEO Clark Hunt, they've got to keep me here so we can keep this going. We've got something special brewing. We have a lot of young guys that continue to get better throughout the year. Pacheco going into his third year, and with guys like that, we can continue to carry this thing. And then it says Jones' market value is $85.4 million over 3 years, $28.4 million annually, according to SpotRack, Steve. Do you think 27 to 28 is something Chris Jones will eventually settle on, or do you think he's going to play a little bit more hardball and stick to that 30 million mark?
I think 27 or 28 would be just enough for Chris Jones. It just depends on if the Chiefs want to play ball with that number. To me, I feel like they're going to be trying to lowball him because I think that's what was going on last year. I'm not for sure about that, but I really do think that's probably what it is. It looks like that Bleacher Report actually put out a story earlier from this. The source was ESPN. I'm not sure who was talking about it, but they said that the feeling around Kansas City is that if they can offer him $27 to $28 million per year, that's going to close the deal. That would get Chris Jones. So, I mean, if they have that feeling that we only have to pay $27 or $28 million and we can lock him in, why aren't they jumping on it? Like, it has to be them trying to get him to come down even further.
I think it's going to happen soon. I think it's going to happen sooner than later. I'm not for sure which is going to happen first. L'Jarius Sneed trade or Chris Jones contract? Do you feel like one has to happen before the other, or does it matter? Do you think they both have to happen before the free agency, or both have to happen before the draft?
Well, I think they've tagged Sneed, right?
Right.
So if they can't trade him, they're looking at paying him $19 million this coming year. They can afford to pay a corner $19 million for a year.
No.
So I think that they need to hurry up and offload Sneed for whatever they can get in draft capital, more than likely. I don't think it necessarily matters if one happens before the other, but I think you would feel more comfortable about having Sneed gone, having your draft capital, then spending the money on Chris Jones. I think that seems a little more comfortable. But either way, Mike, I'm going to be really freaking surprised if that's not what we hear, is that they sign Chris Jones at 3 or 4 years, looking at around $27 million a year, and L'Jarius Sneed traded for some draft capital. If any other scenario comes up, I'm honestly going to be a little shocked.
Chris Jones, 3 years, 76, 78 million, maybe fully guaranteed. Let it go. Trade Sneed off for that, multiple day 2 picks. Dude, this is a draft that multiple day 2 picks, or even day 2 and an early day 3 and third round.
That's huge.
This draft is huge, man. Look, we need tackle. We need wide receiver. We need defensive line help. This draft is full of tackles, wide receivers, and defensive linemen that can go get it done. And by the way, we're a hell of a team at drafting corners and safeties late in the game, so we can always draft another one late in the game and maybe develop them just like we did Sneed the last time.
Yeah, Mike, I think there's some sleepers out there. I know I've talked about it on my mock draft I did the other day, but there's a guy named Kamal Haddon in Tennessee. He only had a small sample size. He only got to play 7 games last year, but the average passer rating against him was a 7. A 7.
Right.
I mean, he was completely shut down, and he's a good size, good length. Good speed. So, I mean, there's guys out there that they could get at a later value and maybe develop them. So, and of course, Brett Veach, if I can spot a guy like that, imagine what Brett Veach and his crew can do, because they're awesome at finding these guys. So I think this is a very deep draft in a lot of different positions. So this would be an excellent draft to get some draft capital and be able to move up and down the boards the way Brett Veach likes to do.
Right. 1,000%. They're at the end of the first round, early second round, maybe even falling late into the second round. You have a few guys to look at, man. You've got Enos Rakestraw from Missouri. A lot of Missouri fans know about Enos Rakestraw. I think he's actually hurt himself a little bit at the combine, but they still like his on ball. Right. He had a few injuries he's had to deal with in college, so he may slip a little bit, but I think he's right there. And then you also have TJ Tampa out of Iowa State. I love TJ Tampa. Could you possibly get him? A Nehemiah Pritchett, who's long and lanky out of Auburn, could be there in the second round. So I think there's plenty of opportunities if you want to go late. If you want to go early, there's just corners across the board. And I think that Brett Veach is going to find them.
The beautiful thing is you don't need to go at all. Even if you trade Sneed away for draft capital, you do not have to compensate that with more corner depth, because we already have it. I mean, Trent McDuffie, Joshua Williams is ready to starting in this NFL and start progressing. I think Joshua Williams could be the next Charvarius Ward, L'Jarius Sneed, guy that comes out of nowhere. They develop him.
People in Chiefs Kingdom think that Jalen Watson's better than Joshua Williams. What do you think about that?
I think they're wrong. I do like Jalen Watson. I think that Jalen Watson was way better than I gave him credit for coming out of the draft. I thought that he was going to be like a practice squad guy. So I was very surprised at what he was able to do in his rookie season. And I like the way Jalen Watson plays. But I feel like if you watch the tape, Joshua Williams is way more locked down than Jalen Watson is. I think he's got more speed. He's longer.
Right. Size, speed, intangibles, ball skills, they're all a lot better in my opinion.
Absolutely.
Not saying anything negative towards Jalen Watson. I just think he's more of that third guy, and I believe
and he
I'm
would
with
be
you.
a damn good third guy. That's the thing
Right.
about it. I don't think you have to compare the two, but I think Jalen Watson's your third guy. Then you got Najee Johnson coming back off an injury. He was progressing, probably going to make the squad as a corner this year before he got hurt. And then you're looking at guys like Shamari Connor that can play the corner position. A lot of people thought we were drafting him last year to take over what Sneed was doing. Of course, we ended up using him at safety, and he was excellent at safety.
Right.
So, I mean, there's still that option. I think the Chiefs are so deep at corner and in the secondary, I don't think they have to worry a whole lot. It would be nice to get another one in the draft, but they don't have to do it in the early rounds, Mike. They can try to take a flyer on a guy in the late rounds and continue to develop what they got. They got a pipeline of these guys, and it seems to be working great.
We didn't even mention last year's flyer, Nick Jones in the 7th, who looked dang good before he hurt his hand. So there's a lot of stuff there. That's why we say when you look at defensive line, be it defensive tackle or defensive end, we are very thin in comparison to our secondary. This team's built to keep Chris Jones over L'Jarius Sneed. And that's 100%. Not a knock against L'Jarius Sneed, but that's just the way it is. Pass rushers are more valuable than corners in this league, and it always will be.
Well, I think that people need to realize that there's not very many people in this league that you would keep over a Chris Jones.
Right.
Like, I think if people could really realize that Chris Jones is a top 5 football player in the league, or at least top 10, and that's player voted, like they know this guy is a top player in the league. I think if the Chiefs fan base could open their eyes to realize what they actually have and realize how bad it would affect the defense as a whole if he was not there, I think they would start to come around on this more. I understand loving L'Jarius Sneed. He was the best corner in football last year, the best cover corner in football. I will say that hands down. I think he was.
Steve, but Chiefs Kingdom holds a grudge. They hold a grudge, and when Chris Jones held out for a game and had the contract dispute and all that, I think there's a small section of Chiefs Kingdom that are never going to forgive
Mike.
him for that.
It's the same small part that every time that the Chiefs stiff somebody, they say, well, it's just business. Well, guess what? It's just business. He's trying to get his money too. And when you're one of the top players in football, one of the best defensive tackles to ever do it, then guess what?
Right.
You're allowed to hold out and try to get your money. That's just how it goes.
Right. Speaking of just business and getting money, Steve, we re-signed Spags, our DC, the best DC
baby.
In the game.
The greatest.
Steve
greatest.
Spagnuolo, baby. But it's come out. Diana Rossini also said that the NFL Insider Reports, which is Diana Rossini, 49ers flirted with hiring DC Steve Spagnuolo after Super Bowl 58 loss. Steve, they tried to snake our boy Spags out from underneath us, according to reports. Do you think there was any way Steve Spagnuolo was going to take that job?
I don't even like the fact that they use the word flirted, Mike, because there's nothing flirting about going and taking your shot at a girl that's way out of your league and she just shutting you down, embarrassing you in front of the world.
That's just embarrassment.
That's not flirting. That's getting shut down, son, and that's what happened there. I know they did interview Merritt, our defensive backs coach, for the DC position, and that's warranted. I think that a guy that's developed these cornerbacks the way we have,
but they didn't choose him. They're so stupid. They took who was it? Staley?
Dude, are you trying to suck? I mean, that's hilarious. But either way, Spags wasn't going nowhere. They knew he wasn't going nowhere either. I don't even know if that's a real thing. I don't know if they actually did it. I know that I've seen the report.
Is why that he went ahead and the Chiefs offered him more years and a higher contract was because of that 49ers flirtation. We'll see.
It's a possibility, Mike. I really don't think they if I had to guess, I bet they probably didn't do that. There was probably some, I don't know. Right. I just don't think they're that dumb, right? But they did hire Brandon Staley.
Right. One quick last note before we get out of here. They're reporting now, it seems like the NFL is going to push the NFLPA to agree to expand the season to 18 regular seasons per NBC. 18 regular season games, Steve. Are they ever going to stop? It'll be at 20.
Man.
It'll be at 20 before too long.
They're greedy. They need to leave the game alone before they ruin the game. I think pushing it to 17 games was really pushing it for these guys. Mike, you talk to any NFL player or you watch any interviews with NFL players, they talk about how hard it is to recover from Sunday to Sunday.
Right.
And by the end of the year, it's not like if people are going to be hurt, it's who's going to be hurt.
If you go 18 games, you now have to, I believe, start to throw on the idea of having 2 bye weeks per season. I think you have to start taking away some of these overseas games that are causing all this travel.
They're not going to do that, and they're not going to do that, and they're going to continue to try to add games because it's all about money and everything.
Hey,
they're
going to keep making it pay-per-view.
That's what they're going to do, man. Expect all these changes to keep pouring in. Expect them to not care about players' safety and care more about the money. That's what they're going to do. And I think if they're not careful, Mike, they're going to take away from the value of the game. Because if you get to the point where you're playing 20 games a year and guys are staying hurt and they can't hang for the whole year.
This is presumably pushing the Super Bowl back 2 weeks possibly. You're going to be playing into March. Like, what is going on? This is starting to get insane out here.
There's already no offseason in the NFL. I mean, right. Mike, we just won the Super Bowl. We barely got to celebrate it for 2 weeks before you're already looking at the combine, starting to look forward to free agency. At the draft. Right. And then right after the draft, you're looking at OTAs, rookie camp. Like, it never stops. Right. It never ends. I think they got to quit cramming this stuff in. They got to quit being greedy before they ruin the product they do have. I just think it's silly to add more on. It's just it's pure greed, and I think it's silly. Just leave it alone.
Right. That's going to wrap it up for today. Thanks for watching All Chiefed Up. We appreciate you. Thanks for liking. Thanks for subscribing and hitting that bell. We'll catch you next time. Go Chiefs. There goes a sight from my soul. There goes a sight.